International relations expert Thembisa Fakude joins us in studio this morning. Good morning.
Morning.
I hope you were able to hear what the ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador to South Africa had to say there. Very interesting, her take on the importance of that UN vote. She says it's not the main thing at this point.
Yeah, sure. I think the UN General Assembly's vote is often symbolic. It's not binding. But it's a place where countries get to lobby. And it's a place where countries get to demonstrate solidarity. And unfortunately, South Africa decided to abstain, which means, therefore, that we've decided to side with a wrong side of history, unfortunately. I understand the rationale behind that abstention, but one would have thought that South Africa would have used that opportunity to vote with the resolution and amplify its position in terms of the double standards that other countries have shown in other wars, particularly in the Middle East. But to abstain, at the end of the day, that is going to be the rationale behind abstention will be noise in the long run. But what will be remembered for is that we decided to side the wrong side of history.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, South Africa, part of the rationale will no doubt be around the relationship between our country and Russia through BRICS.
Sure.
But there is the BRICS declaration, that virtual Delhi summit that was held not very long ago, last year, September, and it talks about its members and the international community ensuring that all disputes, the wording is different to this, but essentially all disputes are peacefully resolved. It, quote, disallows the use of force against the territorial integrity of any country. So when we talk about the relationship between South Africa and Russia and BRICS, there is also this declaration which perhaps we've forgotten about.
Yeah, sure. But South Africa's is torn between the two. One, you have the African Union, and you have BRICS. And South Africa has tended to take a fence-sitting position because it doesn't want to put its head on the block. But this time around, of course, you saw that the only countries within the African Union that has voted are mainly from the southern part of Africa, in other words, SADC countries, Malawi, and also small little countries that have joined South Africa with due respect. One would have expected that South Africa wanted to side itself with the democratic nations around the world and take a much more stronger position instead of often piggybacking on the African Union's position. But what this also does is it kind of it sacrifices South Africa's position on the international scene moving forward.
As a moral authority.
As a moral authority. I mean, they should have taken the stance and then amplified the reasons why it's important henceforth that we take similar positions when it comes to other conflicts around the world. But to simply abstain, as I've said, this is just going to be, the rationale will be the noise in the long run, but what people will remember is that South Africa sided with the wrong side of history.
I suppose the argument is that sanctions are imposed and these kinds of steps are taken when war unfolds in particular parts of the world. Of course, there are other conflicts that have been unfolding for decades in other parts of the world. The same action has not happened.
Precisely, we all understand that. And I'll argue that Obama will say the agents of now. We are faced with a situation where a bully from Russia decides to threaten smaller countries that are neighboring Russia because he has this grand idea of resuscitation of the old Soviet Union. And whilst he's doing that, he jeopardizes the international law and he sets a very wrong precedence because he feels that his people in Ukraine, in other words, the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine, deserve protection. Imagine if we start doing the same as South Africa or Botswana or Lesotho, because we all know that these borders were haphazardly drawn and were not consulted, all of us. But we have to live with what we have. And we can't have a situation where one country feels, by the way, it's very tribalistic.
Yeah.
One country feels that the Russian-speaking people or the people that share the same language across the border were threatened one way or the other, and as a result, I'm going to invade one. Two is that you have, again, this bully who feels that Ukraine, in this time around, might just prefer different politics to his liking, and as a result, I'm going to invade. We understand the security concerns from both sides, by the way, but I don't think there's a justifiable reason why a country like Russia will then decide, given those threats, which, by the way, were never executed in reality.
Yeah.
But these are just threats, and unprovoked, it decides that I'm going to go and stop this from happening. It sets a very wrong precedent in international politics.
Yeah. A rather bizarre address by Vladimir Putin last night. I'm not sure if you caught that one. It was on international news wires with the help of a translator who I think also had a hard time keeping up with Putin's train of thought. But essentially, he still backs his decision to invade Ukraine, and he's still calling it a peacekeeping mission aimed at dealing with neo-Nazis in the Ukraine.
Well, notwithstanding that Volodymyr Zelensky is a Jew, and it claims that it's going to be fighting the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And it just simply doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And he went on to bomb, by the way, the Jewish memorial in Ukraine. And this is the same person who claims that he's fighting the neo-Nazi in Ukraine. So there is an element of, he looked very delusional, actually, if you listen to him. Most of what he's saying doesn't make sense anymore. Because the pictures that we're seeing from independent sources, including the media, suggest otherwise. And he's telling us about these neo-Nazi ultra-nationalists in Ukraine who are trying to commit genocide in provinces such as Luhansk and Donetsk region.
Who are using Chinese people as human shields. That's something else he also said in that address.
Correct, and some Africans and Indians who are there were kept against their will. So most of what he was saying was just rambling, by the way, yesterday, because it contradicts what we're currently seeing from different sources around the world, particularly the independent media that has been there since the beginning of this battle.
Yeah, certainly. Thembisa Fakude, let me thank you for your time this morning. Of course, you and I can sit here for the next hour unpacking what's unfolding in Ukraine and Russia's invasion there. But thank you very much indeed for giving us some perspective on where South Africa sits in the global community in the wake of that UN General Assembly resolution and that vote.